Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 7:04, the regular session. Before we go through the consent agenda, I actually I have some edits to the regular session, the meeting minutes from last time, from the October 13th meeting. So we will not include that in the consent agenda because that needs to be edited. The warrants, it looks like there's a lot of them here, but it's because we didn't do them last time. So there's just kind of extra ones this time. All items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Any motion to approve the consent agenda not inclusive of the meeting minutes?
Moved by Stacy.
Moved by Stacy.
Second by Dawn.
Second by Dawn. All in favor? Great. All right, it looks like our student representatives are not here. If they come, I know sometimes they have games and jobs and things like that, so if they come, we'll come back to them, but at present they are not here. School committee individual comments. Stacy?
So next week, Tuesday, November 1st and Wednesday, November 2nd, the elementary book fair will be taking place at Placentino from 4 to 8 p.m. And the high school Theater 370 will be presenting their fall extravaganza, Pippin, on November 17th, 18th, and 19th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are online, and you can I actually saw it on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, go to Facebook Theater 370, and there's a QR code for where you can get your tickets.
I feel like we always have a meeting on the night of those.
We usually do.
Those plays. We get to get the buzz of all the energy. It's kind of fun. Great. Thank you. Amanda?
So this isn't a topic for us to discuss at our meeting tonight, but I just feel like I wanted to acknowledge the hateful racist incident that occurred today at Rams, in addition to other similar incidents. I wanted to commend the central administration for acting so quickly and emailing the community as soon as they could. I want to express my support to the administration to continue to make this a top priority. In addition, I want to ask the community to make sure that we are each also making this a top priority in addressing the hate behind the incidents that have been occurring. Encourage us to talk to our neighbors, to our friends, engage in community conversations about what's happening. Parents, talk to your kids. Teachers, have those supportive conversations. As long as this keeps happening in Holliston, it is not just the school's problem, it is all of our problems. And so we all need to work to help to solve it. So just felt like it needed to be said.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I have a couple things for tonight. The Board of Health, I met with the Board of Health, and they are discussing some changes to the tobacco regulations, and they'll be holding a public hearing. I'm not sure when, maybe December, maybe January, and at this point they're only going to be discussing the fines and penalties for selling for under 21, as far as I know. So they're not making any changes or adjustments at this time regarding allowing smoking bars or anything about that right now. Doesn't mean that that won't change, but for right now, that's what they've decided to discuss. The others, I just want to let people know that early voting is already going on here in Holliston at the town hall until November 4th. In which case they will just flip over and start preparing for Election Day, which is November 8th. So get out and vote, please. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Very briefly, winter sports registration for high school is open and it closes next Friday. So make sure you get your kids registered, and congratulations to girls cross country who won the Tri-Valley League championship last Saturday.
Good job. Go girls.
Great. Anybody else? All right, thank you. We do not have anybody here for public comment. Nope.
Unless we do have someone on Zoom. Is that a person that's registered for public comment? Or
I didn't get any emails.
So it's just someone attending the meeting?
Okay. No, just attending. Okay, moving right along. Our presentation, Safe and Supportive Schools. Rapid fire tonight.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. I am going to kick it off just to introduce myself to those at home that might not know who I am in this role. So I am Jess Beatty, taking over as Interim Student Services Director. And I partner with Jeriel, who you all know, the Director of SEL and Equity. We want to take you on a little journey tonight, a very important one to central office and to our administration teams and our staff around student success, and really trying to map it out for you and help sort of shed light on this long journey, but this real important journey. So it's not something that can be done overnight, but certainly something we're working really hard across the district to help all students. We're going to start by mapping out through the strategic plan, Arch 2, and this drives all of the work that we are doing in the district, but for Jeriel and I, really is driving the two teams in which we run, so the student services team along with our student support team that is comprised of psychologists, counselors, nurses, a plethora of people that really are doing some good work. And we really feel like through this arch, if we are better developing our tiered systems of support, our communication, we're continuing through this work, though, to keep the learning and the opportunities rigorous and engaging, but also looking at our staffing and making sure that we are bringing on and maintaining staff that are allowing our students and other staff to feel like they can identify with one another, they're feeling safe, they're feeling supportive. So all of this work, hopefully you will see driven through this arch as we go through. We are going to go through quite a bit, and we tried to map it out as clear as possible. So really walking you through the blending of all of the approaches that we would be taking through student services and student supports. So we are looking at inclusivity through SEL and belonging, but also blending that with our teaching and learning practices while really making everything we do data-driven, because that really is the key to making sure things are measurable, we're holding people accountable, and we're seeing progress or lack thereof and where we need to make adjustments. So we wanted to provide this visual to sort of pull everything together to make sense and meaning out of our instruction, how we're practicing things, and our mental health supports all in one between our two departments. And in the middle, we pull it together. Sorry, you're going to hear us talk a lot about MTSS, and you're going to see this visual of a schoolhouse, which we really is a theme for us relative to the Massachusetts tiered supports, and that is the structure and foundation of everything we're doing, data-driven practices, and the structure that sort of holds that foundation for us relative to the three-tiered approach that we do here in Holliston.
So good evening. One of the things that we were thinking about as we thought about what to share today is the reality that a lot of this work requires a lot of context and a lot of background building. So one of the things that we will be sharing either in the month of November or early December is we're going to be hosting 2 family community educational opportunities. One will be around MTSS. What is PBIS? What is SEL? What is this work? And how does it fit what we would say is equity work, right? And in that session, we're looking to cover is what is it? What do I need to know as a community member? What are schools doing, right? What is actually happening within that frame? How can I support, right? How can I support as a community member, as a parent, as a grandparent? What's my role? And what should I expect? What should I expect to see happening at schools as we head into the future? So that's what we're going to do for the first part. The second part, which is a building on that piece, is that contextually, we really wanted to kind of set the structure, the frame of how does this work happen, and then within that, what is this thing that we're going to talk about, which is the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, right? We really believe that this work, we want to provide transparency and share the data with our community, but also provide an opportunity for people to understand what is it, right? Why is this important to me? Once again, where can I find this information? What's my role in this? What can schools do, and what can community partners do? We're going to talk a little about, and this is where the MTSS piece really is important to understand, is that schools have a responsibility with all of this work, but our community partners do too, in our mental health agencies, and how do we work together to make that work? So we're looking forward to sharing these two pieces. I've had an opportunity to talk with community members, and this is a piece that community has said, we want to learn more about these aspects, and we knew that in a school committee meeting, we need more time to really flush this out for people to kind of really wrestle with this. So we're hoping that happens, and it's the beginning of kind of more future opportunities for people to learn at a deeper level what's behind the work.
So to sort of bring all of that together over the next two slides is just painting the direction that we want to go in as a district, and really aligning all of the things that we do so that a student's journey from pre-K all the way to 12 plus feels like it is aligned and we're moving in the same direction. And so you will see throughout the year, throughout this presentation, this multi-tiered system of support and how that looks. And we always say that things should be almost like an elevator of support, whether that's academic, mental health, behavioral supports, that no student should be stuck, right? And so we really want to be able to provide supports for all students where they can move and transition as needed, that we're giving them every opportunity to show growth, to demonstrate that they're learning and growing as graduates, visions of graduates, right? And that's what we're looking for. And so over to the right is just a visual for everyone to see that we're moving in the same direction, whether we're looking at academics, whether we're looking at social emotional supports. We are looking to improve, but we're also looking for the results and the data to show us that. So we started thinking about this entire presentation, and we thought everybody typically wants a nice brand new school building. And when we started thinking about that, we found this great visual of the work and the time that it takes, right? And so, when we have incidents that are occurring that feel unsafe or scary, or we're looking at kids in crisis where we want to provide them support, we also realize it takes time to build that structure and that foundation, right? We want to get it right. And so we're really taking our student support services teams and building us from the ground up. And so you're going to hear us talk a lot about, in the next couple of slides, all of the things we're doing. It looks and feels very overwhelming. And we keep applauding our staff for taking that journey with us and really diving in deep, because once we set that foundation, it is going to be much easier to go between floors and provide different levels of support, because one, they are educated and they know how to do it, and then they see the impact that it is really working on students. So this is just a visual of the process it will take to get to a beautiful school building that everybody would love.
One of the things, can you go back? One of the things that we wanted to talk about, when we think about MTSS, you're going to hear these other terms called Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And when you look at these pictures, Tier 1 is something that would be for all students, right? Something that touches everyone within the school. That would be the foundation blocks, right? When you start to building from something from scratch, you need the foundation. That's the foundation work, right? As you start to build the walls, and you start to put in windows, and you start putting furniture, that starts to become the higher tiered work. The reason why I wanted to stop and just comment on that is that as we start talking about the work around MTSS and we start talking about structuring this work, you might hear us say that's Tier 1. Mm-hmm. What we mean is that's foundation building. That's something that we believe everyone should benefit from, because it holds the house, it holds the schoolhouse. And then as we continue to talk about, you'll hear the higher levels within that schoolhouse, but that all stems from what we're building at the foundation. So that's why we thought this picture would make sense, because that foundation piece is key for the successes towards the future. So one of the things we want to share is we started to kind of build our schoolhouse, right? So when we think about, there's a lot of things that we could say as far as that we are doing, we're doing this, we're doing that, but where does it fit, right? that MTSS schoolhouse is a national model. It's a Massachusetts Department of Education model. But as we start talking about this work, we want to start situating where does it fit within that schoolhouse, right? Because the essence of what we're trying to build is our Holliston Public School schoolhouse at the district level. What are we doing at those multiple levels to support students along this trajectory? And then by school, what does each schoolhouse look like, right? So, but at the district level, we're asked to align that work across the district. What you'll see on the left is right of our strategic plan, right? So that's the language that comes right out of strategic plan. What you're going to start to see pop up on the right picture are things that are actually happening in Holliston last year and into this year. Go ahead. So one of the things that we started doing last year and we're continuing to do this year is build data structures. So what I mean by that is that every school district has data, right? But what it really comes down to are what are you doing with that data? How are we analyzing that data? So last year we started a process called data dialogues. We're going to continue to do that again this year. But the point of that was to have data that's been readily available, but to share it. Share it with our school counselors, share it with our community members, share it with our stakeholders, Holliston Youth and Family, and get in a room and say, what can we all do about this data, right? We'll have a chance to look at some of that data today, but all that data isn't just school data, those are our kids. That's community data. So building a structure for not only how we get the data, but let's make sure we're doing something when that data comes in. That's something that we started last year, and we're going to continue to build and enhance that this year. So we actually started the year doing professional development for all district staff, which included paraprofessionals, front office staff, et cetera, on the impact of trauma on learning. That's a tier one, it's a tier one process. Well, it's a tier one opportunity specifically because we believe that if everyone can understand what the impact of trauma on learning is, all of that information is foundational, can help us build not just more inclusive, but easier accessible classrooms, easier accessible learning opportunities. One of the things that we heard from people attending the professional development was how much they enjoyed having this professional development. They really enjoyed not just hearing about the impact of trauma, but starting to think about what are the things we could do collectively. And I think the other piece is that we are all community members as well. So learning about how trauma impacts the lives of our kids equally helps us be more engaged society with kids of our own, grandkids, et cetera. So a lot of people have not just appreciated the professional learning that came out of that. We also have, connected to that, we're actually launching in about a week, Lesley University is going to be offering a trauma-sensitive Section 1 course here on campus, and we have 24 educators signed up for that. And they have a 4-part series where you can end up with a certificate in trauma-sensitive education. And we've had about at least 5 or 6 educators who did the full series. They raved about it. I personally have done it in another district, and I really think it's going to be extremely impactful here in Holliston as well. So we'll get a chance to kind of talk about PBIS in a bit, but this is something we just launched this year. The Holliston High School joined a Department of Education SEL Mental Health Academy. And what that is that Holliston High School built a SEL mental health team. And that team is going to be, for the next few years, being supported by myself, school administration, and also the EDC to build this MTSS schoolhouse here at the high school with direct support with people who do this work district to district, but make sure that we're building that schoolhouse here for our kids here. So that's going to be a three-year trajectory where the school is going to take from the ground up, start to build their foundations, and also make sure that when they're building foundations, they're also thinking about the outcome, right? Which is not only the vision of the graduate, but how do we get good at measuring what it is that we want to do, and always having a flexible mindset to kind of go back and continually fix and upgrade that schoolhouse here as well, and across the district as well. Go ahead. So you've heard me talk about PBIS in the past. We have PBIS in full swing at both of our elementary schools and Rams Middle School. They're now in year 2 of a 3-year academy with the Department of Education. And we're going to, as you heard in the slides before, we're going to have a community event that also speaks to that. At that community event, we're also going to have consultants from those academies with us. Because we think it's not only important for community to hear from us, but we also want them to hear from the experts in the field around the benefits of this work just as well. And so that's going to be another tier 1 foundation for all kids as we continue down the line. So another piece that we had the opportunity, last year I received a SEL mental health grant from the Department of Education. One of the things we did that is we formed a SEL review team that started reviewing what resources we had in the community, or not in the community, in our schools. One of the things that was a reality is that when I entered last year, Open Circle, which was the resource that both of our elementaries had been using, they're no longer in existence. So as a district, we had to start looking at where do we want to go with this work, right? So last year, this team, which consisted of school counselors, school administrators, looked at the plethora of resources. And I think you've heard me say that there's over 100 SEL resources that schools can utilize. We've utilized CASEL, which is a national organization that looks at SEL resources, and they provided, almost vetted, those resources to make sure that they're research-based. We use that system and cataloging system to start our research. From there, we ended up at 2 SEL resources that really spoke to the community team. As we head into this year, we're going to start piloting in small spaces those 2 resources. We're also going to be including and adding more teachers and educators to that SEL review team, because we want to make sure that as we arrive at a place that we say this might be the resource we want to get good at, that has been vetted by our own educators, that's been vetted by students and gotten feedback by students, and also community members. Because investing in something that we get good at takes time, but we want to make sure it's the right resource for us. Versus what sometimes happens is that districts might pick something, and because it hasn't been vetted and hasn't been fully looked at to make sure it speaks to Holliston, it lasts and then it's gone in a couple of years. We don't want that to be the trajectory, and if anything, that leads to inequity. So we want to make sure we get this right, and that's part of the work that happened this year. So I talked about the trauma-sensitive course. That's also Tier 1. Why? Because that's foundation building for our teachers, right? It helps them think about what does this look like. And we're excited about launching that as well.
Our literacy initiative, which I don't even want to call it an initiative anymore because it has been ongoing work that has started down at Placentino and advanced to Miller, where we have trained the majority of special ed staff in Norton Gillingham, and really making literacy that foundational focus as students journey through the Holliston Public Schools, feeling like if we can get a solid foundation of students reading and writing, we are going to be in a far better place relative to their growth overall. We are going to be partnering with CPAC to create what we're going to call our Holliston Public Schools Specialized Guidebook. So what we're noticing is we really need to be able to have everything and every resource in one place for families. And so what we want to do, we used to have a welcome handbook kind of thing through CPAC, is sort of bridge the two, school world and CPAC. Where it will be a handbook that provides our current practices, what our continuums and programs look like, having common language. So I know in the educational world we use lots and lots of acronyms and not everybody knows what that is. So having a glossary right in there so that families know what that means, providing counseling supports and resources within that handbook, and just talking about the overall processes of 504s, IEPs, and all of those things that not every family might be familiar with or understand, and really Hollistonize it to us. We have been, you want me to keep going? We have been working on our student support provider meetings that we have once a month. Jeriel and I run that. And what we've worked to do this year, with the support of our principals actually, is creating specialized professional development for those counseling and support members. So we have been searching long and hard. We're going to put them through cognitive behavioral therapy program where they're going to learn that skill set and then be able to apply that in their everyday counseling with students, which I think when we talk about student growth from a school perspective, it's really teaching kids the skills to manage themselves to remain in school. And so it's important for our counselors, they all come from different types of counseling background, to feel solid in a skill set that they can share with students.
And as we speak to that, I think the other piece too, kind of contextualize, right, is that this is something, a lot of the work that we're talking about are also the work that our counselors and our own educators have been asking for, right? So I think that's key to say, is that a lot of what you're seeing in the schoolhouse, as you start to see it be built and we build foundations and the different tiers, it feels overwhelming. But the other good, which is one of the things that I've loved about this is also what our educators have asked for, right? Provide me professional development. They see the rising mental health needs in the schools. They see students more students struggling with anxiety, but they also want to build their own tool set to be able to support that, right? So as we talk about this, we don't, we also want to make clear that the purpose is not to provide and to build our staff to become clinicians, but it is to think about how do they, the opportunities they have with our students, how do they best support our kids? What tools can they bring into their lessons to better support the work necessary? The other piece, when we talk about SSP, I wanted to kind of say who's in that, right? Because I think that sometimes we can say acronyms, we're not sure what that means. So SSP means all school counselors, school adjustment counselors, school psychologists, BCBAs, and some school administration as well. Am I missing anyone?
Yes. No.
No? Okay. All right, go ahead, Keith. So another thing that came out of the SEL Mental Health Grant last year was our school counselors were saying we'd love to see a tool that could help us measure progress when we're working with students. So one of the things that we're piloting last year and into this year, throughout the year, is an SEL benchmarking tool called the DESA. And what the DESA does is it is a tool for counselors to be able to, when they're working with students, it's almost like a benchmark tool, just like we do DIBELS, just like we utilize in academic world, to be able to say, what are the strengths of, for instance, this group that I have when it comes to the SEL? So for example, let's say the DESA was done on me and it showed that self-awareness was a struggle for Jeriel, right? For instance, I jump out and I speak in times or I'm unable to regulate what I'm saying, or I lack self-awareness. So as a counselor, they might see that and might be able to build lessons specifically for that and measure progress, right? Our counselors have been saying it's so hard as a school counselor, school adjustment counselor, to measure what it is I do, right? Because when we talk about working with students, it's over time. It's not short term. So one of the things that we've been trying to look at is how do we measure progress, and not progress from a deficit standpoint, but progress from a standpoint of, are we building skill, and are we building those SEL skills that we know are so necessary for our students to succeed and for us as adults to succeed just as well. So there'll be more updates coming about that tool as well.
DESA.
DESSA.
Thank you.
Yeah. So another professional development, and this was also came from our SSP members, is they said, and this is not only in conjunction with the incidences of hate that occurred last year, but also our school's student support team acknowledged that our students are becoming more and more diverse, and as support staff, they want to feel confident that when they enter that student support relationship, that they feel confident in engaging in conversation around culture, around race, around identity. So we designed a professional development series that will be happening this year that is around ensuring that when we're supporting students from a student services perspective, that we're doing it with a cultural lens, with a cultural understanding of how important it is to understand our full students when thinking about some of those, not just mental health needs, but some of those SEL needs for our students to succeed in the future. So another piece that we did, and this is also through the SEL Mental Health Grant, one of the sad pieces, and I think we all struggle with, is that we've throughout time have seen tragedies happen at schools, right? Not just from school shootings, but just things that happen on a daily basis. And one of the things that we're tasked with is not just building supports for students in the moment, but also thinking about the structure. So one of the things that we were talking about and we wanted to build was that as a district, we believe we have a strong crisis response protocol, but one of the things that we wanted to build into it is how do we support students when something like that were to happen. There's a structure of what it would look like for us to work with police and fire and evacuating buildings, but then what happens with the student piece? What happens with the student support piece that is so necessary, right? So one of those things is we're training all of our SSP members in a process called psychological first aid. And what that would be is a training for any of those members to be able to enter to a situation with a student, with a staff member who's just witnessed something traumatic, and to build a skilling them to be able to help help that person just witness that. I don't want to say regulate, but be able to be in a place where they can self-regulate their emotions in the moment, right? Which is easier said than done, but we also know, and when we witness stuff, it's hard to kind of come down from witnessing something traumatic. So we wanted to make sure that all of our student support providers felt confident entering that space if necessary. And we know that in schools, when things happen, one of the first people we often pull in are our school counselors, school psychologists, school adjustment counselors. So we wanted them to feel confident in that space. So as we build this, we're going to be building the crisis response team for this, that is the humanistic response to that work.
I think one important thing to add that Jeriel really thought long and hard about is inviting other surrounding communities into that process too. So we're able to help partner with different towns, because when tragedy strikes, sometimes even those counselors are very close to that tragedy, and it makes it really, really hard for them to be able to walk into that and be, strong. So, I think that has been a really great thing, and our student support providers are excited to partner with surrounding communities so that they too can launch and go to Hopkinen or go to Medway or go wherever is needed to help out, and vice versa. So that's really a great thing that we're trying. We are partnering with Landmark Outreach through a grant that Kelly Camp had put together. This work at the end of last year, and we just launched it starting in October. We have a team from Landmark Outreach that is coming out and working specifically with Miller and Rams at this time to look at our language-based programs and instruction. I've had a lot of great questions relative to why this hasn't dipped down to Placentino yet, and looking at the data from both SSAs and Kelly Camp, they deemed the highest need right now was grades 3 to 8. So we're going to really get that language-based model solid, and then be able to flex down and above. So that is work that you will hear a lot about this year and into next. It's a 3-year initiative that we've partnered with them. So again, one of those long journeys, but great journeys.
When you say language-based practices, could you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, yeah. So we currently have what we deem language-based classrooms that are sub-separate. So what we want to really do is work hard to train our staff through Landmark staffing around building capacity in language. So kids are really understanding and seeing the word and making the connections, breaking that language down so that they can meet success in small group, and then go back out into the larger settings and apply those. So you'll see a lot of language walls, a lot of vocabulary breakdown, different types of rubrics and things that they would be using, and also really creating what that model looks like, what that student profile looks like, because I think that's important too. A lot of times we feel like kids act, fit that profile, but not necessarily always do. So, and then we will embed that throughout each tier, right? So really working hard with our teachers and breaking down language no matter where they are.
So would this be in support of ELL, or would it be?
No.
It would be something separate?
Yeah, totally separate. Yep.
And nothing to do with ELL?
Correct.
More a multi-sensory approach to reading, and the reason they're targeting grades 3 to 8 is you'll find it gets more and more challenging once they hit 3rd grade and above. It's that much more challenging, so they have to have really explicit, direct instruction on this. Correct. And that's also part of trying to build that literacy, early literacy interventions in the younger grades, so that they don't get to 3rd grade, and then again, it gets very frustrating for students, which then that's why they made the connection with behavioral, because it ties right in. Sometimes the child is expressing their language deficits through behavioral, and
right. So as you see, we go up through that tier, right? The language base would be more of a special educational instruction approach. So you're reaching that higher level tier, whereas our literacy initiative is hitting home with all students in that foundation. Correct. Language base is going further up that tier to provide a smaller group of students in need of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're also going to hear us talk a lot about this year of continuum alignment. So we have our basis, our network, and our rest stop pathways connections continuum, which is one continuum but 3 different names. And so we are really looking at, we're going to begin pulling together alignment meetings after school within those continuums and working with the staff across the district from Placentino to the high school to talk about what each continuum looks like, what type of student that focuses on, what is our entrance, our exit criteria, how are we collecting data and sharing that out relative to so that families can see progress. But again, that's a higher tiered approach, so that would be more of specialized instruction and really looking at how do we make that process for students across the district feel really familiar for students and families as they go through.
So one of the pieces that I know Holliston's familiar with is Mood Check, which in many ways is our mental health screening that we utilize at middle school and high school grades as well. So that's a tier 3, right? That's how do we capture some of those mental health needs of our students. That will be continued. But one of the pieces that we're going to ensure that we start doing is that we can actually, that data is individual student driven, right? So if a student were indicated as needing support, they work with the student and the family. But there also might be trend data that we need to look at. And I think that data hasn't been brought into the conversation around what is, year to year, what is Mood Check telling us about our needs of our students. So as we move forward into this year, we're going to ensure that starts to happen as well, is that we're reflecting on that and ensuring that if we see trends in any area that we're either building skill, right, for our student support personnel, but also sharing what are some of those needs so that our mental health professionals in the community can see what are some of the trends happening within our schools as well.
So we just filled you in on a lot of work that we are currently doing or are going to be doing. And why do we do this work? Really just wanting to paint that picture of equality, equity, justice, and inclusion. And we feel like it's super, super important to stress that this is not about one type of student. Really, it is taking all of Holliston Public School students and bringing them on this journey of equity, but also inclusion, right? And so when we look at this model, we start from the beginning, and it's making that assumption that everybody benefits from the same support. We know that is not true, right? So then we start to make it more equitable in providing them what they need, right? And then we look at justice, where we are eliminating the barriers. But then finally, our ultimate goal is to get to inclusion. And we have been working with a few different communities, looking at our continuums and how we're going to align. And we're going out on school visits to Medway, to Norton, to Medfield to look at how they do. And I think of inclusion because one of the people we met with from Norton Public Schools said, remember, inclusion is a feeling, not a place, right? And so that is really important for us to embrace as a Holliston Public School community, is inclusion doesn't necessarily mean being all together all the time, but how do you feel when you're with the people you are with? And so that really is the goal for us as we walk through this journey. So we are going to take a quick dip into, and I know that Jeriel had talked a lot about, or a little bit about earlier, we are going to dive deeper into the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey and a parent or a family night. But I do want to give a little bit of a connection as to why we're doing this work and what is giving us the meaning to do it. So for those of you that don't know, we have been a part of the Metro West Health Risk Survey since its inception in 2006. And it is something that is done every other year. It started out where we did grades 7 through 12. Now we have added in the past several times we've done this grade 6, which I think really gives us a good amount of data. And we do this through the Metro West Foundation. It surveys the majority of Metro West, and really I think every school that is a part of it has adopted that grade 6 to 12 approach, which is great, so we can look at data together. This is just a snapshot of the current data, and again, I don't want to get too bogged down in the numbers right now, because I think Jeriel and I are really going to put together a more comprehensive approach to understanding the data. But typically what will happen is they will provide us with the key indicators to start, which look like this. And it really gives a synopsis of this one is by year. We also can break it down by grade in school. We can look at it across the Metro West and just compare things. So what this is showing us is it gives us a lens of where our students are either struggling or progressing relative to substance use. We look a lot at stress. We look a lot at whether there is perceived or feelings of bullying going on, and mental health.
Can I jump in and just ask?
Sure.
So on the right,
Yep.
I couldn't, so the left-hand part is clear, but the right-hand part looks like the top is cut off?
Yep. So those are the dates, 2006, 2008, 2010 up top. They are cut off, you're right. It's off the slide.
And the left is the middle school and the
So
right is the high school.
yep. So it's the middle
Okay,
school
that's
is
what
the
I was
data.
wondering.
Yep, right here on the left. Yep, and the high
just
school is
middle
on the
school.
right.
The left is middle school.
Left is middle school, right is high.
Left
So they don't ask middle
Yes.
schools about their
Okay.
sexual behavior.
So where it's, and this is Holliston data.
Correct.
So where it says something like physical fighting, that's a percentage, right? So if it says
Right.
32, that's a percentage of 395?
That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And students can opt out and not take
Right.
this, so that's also perspective that we need to have, is that it's not a total of the entire middle school population, although we would love it. This is also one of the surveys where we provide an opportunity for families to come in and take a look at this data, the survey questions ahead of time, but it's not something that where we are allowed to release the survey publicly to have parents view it.
And part of also why we wanted to do a separate night just focused on this is that all of this data is equally available by gender, by race, by identified ethnicity, by over time. You can look at different questions. So there's a lot of data. And when we think about what can we share at school committee meeting, in many ways, these are some of the key indicators that are shown, but we also want an opportunity to kind of just share all of the data in a really transparent way, which is why we wanted to build something just duly for that purpose, and also make sure that we're working with the EDC. If you saw the slide before, they're the ones who not only created the survey but support districts. They're going to be at that opportunity with us to also talk with community for any questions around the data as well.
So what we wanted to do was,
Interesting.
Lot to unpack.
yeah, we
That
didn't
was-
want to dive
that
too deep
was-
into the data, right? But what we want to show you and paint the picture of is that when we are putting programs, trainings, practices into place, we don't do it because we just think that that might be good. We're using concrete data given to us either by staff, by students, by families, things that are really concrete that can help us measure if what we're doing is working or not working. And so we really want to dig deep in another night, but this is just sort of to paint that picture for you, right? So if you're looking at that entire chart we just looked at, some of the things that you could pull out is that our substance use across high school and the middle school is on a steady decline, which was great. There has been a small increase in the bullying and cyberbullying over time. And really what is not surprising to us is the mental health concerns are on a steady increase, right? And so that is a global issue. That is not something just centralized to Holliston, but it's important to us because that's the hard work that we do. So it's really looking at what practices and things are we putting into place to know if we're making an impact. And so that's the data that we're using. We also look at student behavior data. And so these are ways which we wanted to outline for you that our staff or our discipline data, our attendance data are showing us that students are struggling. So they might not be able to articulate it in a survey, but they are able to show us in behavior. So that is just as important to us to be able to capture and put policies, protocols, things in place in buildings that can help students either regulate their behavior, help them get to school, why aren't they coming to school, why are they avoiding class, things of that nature. So this is a snapshot of just the behaviors that we highlight across the district that students appear to be struggling more, and especially more since COVID. We've really seen an uptick in these behaviors.
And one of the things that when I first arrived to the district, I heard a lot, and it was something that a lot of schools said, was that behavior is communication, right? And one of the reasons that we wanted to share this is that in many ways, this is some of the ways our students communicate with us, that there's some struggles. So we don't look at this from a deficit standpoint. We see it from what are they trying to communicate to us, right? They might be telling us that they're struggling throughout the day. They might be telling us that they're overwhelmed at different times and they're not sure how to cope. So part of the conversation is taking what they show us and then say, so then what do we do with that, right? What does that look like? What does our response look like? What skill do we want to build to try to support some of that work?
So one of the ways that I have noticed, just from my ability to be in this district and go from a counseling role to an administrative role to a central office role, is really the outside counseling supports, and where that is a super challenge for families. So many of you, or all of you might know, we were partnered with Interface, who was an agency where we would call up and we would make a referral for a student who may need counseling services, hospitalization, things of that nature. And the turnaround and their ability to keep up was really hard. And so we were finding that school counselors were being inundated more with therapy-like jobs, and that's not really where they're trained in. So we did a lot of research, and we are now shifting and partnering with Care Solace. There are main differences, which I think are really great, is that they are a 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-week service. So whereas when we were working with Interface, it was an 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And you will see when we roll through the slides that a lot of time kids are seeking help is weekends and nights. And so this allows for families to contact Care Solace, for staff, for anybody that is connected to that child. It also offers our staff and our staff's family members counseling service, which is really great and a really nice benefit at no additional cost to us, which is really lovely. We have already completed a full training with all of our administrators and our counselors on how to do this. We did that within the first week of school so that we could really kickstart this and get things going for our kids. A really wonderful feature is a dashboard, and if you want to shift the slide, they can see that. So.
Just a quick question on Care Solace. So what is it? Is it somebody who picks up the phone and tells you who else to call, or is it someone who has an ongoing relationship with the child or the family? What is it?
That's a great question. Give me 1 second and we'll get, so this is the dashboard and the view of what it looks like for any staff member that it does referrals. So it could be administration or counselors who are able to see who they referred, what it was that they were referred for, and then Care Solace gives us a breakdown, really monthly, but could be at any point, of the demographics of the people being referred, the issues that they're dealing with, and how long it took them to match somebody. I'm going to flip the slide. So what they call it is warm handoffs. So what will happen is you can either call and speak, you can text, or you can fill out a form on their website. And we have on all of our school websites and district website how to access this. What they will do within 48 hours is match you with a clinician. They will ask you different questions relative to, like, how far are you willing to travel outside your area, within 10 miles, 15 miles, and some basic questions around what type of care you're looking for. One of the nice features of this is it's really hard to find partial hospitalizations for students, and they will help you do that. So a lot of times we send students to the ER and they sit there for hours or days, which is heartbreaking, and this, they will be able to do it. And the reason is they have so many people working for them, whereas other agencies like Interface did not have as many people working for them. So this gives you a breakdown of our inception with them and how much we've already used. They were very impressed with our staff and the amount of people they were referring and getting the word out there. So 14 warm handoffs were submitted. 3 of them were staff and family members of staff, which is great because that's also showing that we're utilizing that service because I do think we have to keep in mind the mental health of our staff as well, which often gets forgotten with teachers. So they are utilizing it. The feature around staff is that if I were to refer a staff member, I can only go so far as referring. A staff member and or their family's information never shows up on the dashboard, which is a nice feature. So anything you see on the dashboard is all student-related data. They're able to tell us how many staff family members are referred, but would not give us the breakdown. They will continue to work with you. You can go ahead and flip ahead. They will continue to work with you until a match is made, and they will continue that follow-up. So they make you an appointment, you go to the appointment, they follow up 2 days within that appointment to say, did that feel like a good match? Yes, no, we're back at it again. So it is really a wraparound service that we've been really impressed with.
Can I also just ask, I know it's 48 hours before they get back to you with someone you can see, but how soon do they get people in?
It depends.
Do they have any data on that? Does it take 1 week or 1 month or 10? Like, do we have data on how quickly they can?
Yeah,
on average?
I can ask.
Okay.
It is pretty rapid. I would say even from my own experience, because I've made a few referrals, it was within the week. I heard from them within 48 hours. It was matched within a week, within that 5-day week.
Wow.
Yeah, and they also will text you to keep you updated and reach out and say, I think I have a match. When can I connect and talk to you? So it's really, I'm very impressed with them and have actually shared that information with surrounding school districts because it's such a need. So.
And as we continue to work with them, can you monitor and especially the partial hospitalizations, right? Because those are emergency situations. Like, just continue to have an understanding of how fast they are able to get families in for that, because I think that's a really important part.
That is a really important, yes. And we have not had the experience of referring anyone to partial through this yet.
Okay.
But just knowing that ability is there is really great. And not something we've ever had with another place. Yeah.
One more question on that. Can you go back to the previous slide for just 1 second? So I'm wondering what the difference is between this 1,100 communications, but then there's only, like 48, only 14 warm handoffs. I'm wondering, so not everybody is calling for a match, I'm guessing, from that?
Yep.
So what other things are they asking for?
So it's also the amount of things that they're seeking out. So for one person, they're not going to just call one agency. They're calling rapid fire on everything within the parameter that you gave them, that criteria. So it's the amount of phone calls and communication going in and out to find that. So they might call several agencies, then they might call that counselor back, and then they might call the family, and then they might, so it's...
And then the text messages.
And you can see through the dashboard, so if I made a referral on Johnny, say, right, I can see the person that accepted the warm handoff, who they called, how many times, does that person have an opening? So it's really nice to be able to even see as, ooh, now I have another counselor that I know is accepting referrals,
right,
and hold that name as a resource, right? So.
And do you believe that the 1,100 communications relate to 14 plus 7 plus 48, all of those, not just the handoffs, but the families that reach out?
Correct,
Okay.
correct,
So that
yes.
makes sense.
Yep.
Can I ask one more quick question? Sorry. Did they help families with insurance too?
Yes, so they will ask you what type, and if you don't take insurance or you don't want to utilize your insurance in that way, yes. Yep.
And you saw the dashboard, I saw that they had all the different insurance companies that by percentage that they've activated, well, they've accessed.
Yeah, it's really great. Okay, and finally, we're kind of winding down here. I want to first acknowledge and thank the fact that we have 4 full-time school psychologists. I got a very big applause at the CPAC parent rights meeting that we had the other night about this. It has made a huge impact on just our ability alone to get to kids, to get evaluations done, to the things that we need to get done. And the psychologists that we have hired are amazing. And so we took a look at what more do we want to do. And I have had many conversations with our school psychologists already we want to utilize them to their capacity, right? So to have them for testing is fantastic, but to be able to use them with student support would be even better. So these are just ways that over time, again, it's a journey that we want to begin to utilize our staff to their capacity and really recognize their professional practice and how good they are at it. So as we talked a little bit about earlier, we're wanting to bring together more cohesive and collaborative internal Holliston teams, so bringing our continuums together. Talking about how do we align those services. I'm going to be taking teams with me out into other towns to look at continuums and bring things back. So really that collaborative approach. Pulling together more evaluation teams. So what I'm noticing here is we may be contracting out for a lot of different evaluations that we could do internally with people if we had them trained and could really pull them to do it. Our student support teams, we're working really hard to make that a meaningful once a month time so that they can case study together, brainstorm on how they're going to help kids and really get some good training in there. And then Jerry Ellen talked about our crisis team.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to, as we talk about creating cohesive and collaborative internal teams, part of it is also thinking about how do we work more effectively together as a district. I think one of the things as we think about this work is we can all acknowledge there's rising mental health needs. There's so many more social challenges that our students are struggling with. Social media is having even stronger impact on a daily basis on our kids. Sometimes we might automatically think that we just need to add more counselors, or we just need to do more of this or more of that. And I think one of the biggest keys before any of those things are ever considered is to make sure that the teams we have are A, being effective, and that we're doing and evaluating the work that we're doing to try to identify what are some of those gaps and what are those areas that we can get better at, right? We're excited that the SSP team has started to do that, and they've been able to tell us, here's what we need. We need this training. We've been wanting to do this. Get us this, because they've been searching for a direction on how to best build the capacity. But as we say that, we also know that we have that opportunity throughout the district. There's a lot of teams happening at schools. There's a lot of data that we're collecting. But we also want to make sure that all of our teams are doing that work effectively, right? That we have the right data in front of us to make the right decisions, that we have the right professional development to support those decisions that need to be made. So part of the work isn't just going to be creating cohesive and collaborative teams, but it's also making sure that those teams are being as effective as possible, because time is not infinite, right? There's a lot of things happening within a school, and they all want to do the work, but when we're together, we need to make sure it's the right work and that it's the work led by that data.
I think that's a really good point. I think we've talked about that, Kelly and I, in past presentations. People seem to think that adding and layering on more people is the solution. And the reality is we have children for 6.5 hours a day or thereabouts, right? So when children are severely impacted, they need something more, which is why we have these referral services. We really try to look at our models as how can we do more as support groups, recognizing children that have similar profiles and things like that, and how can they learn from their peers about treatment strategies with counselors versus that one-on-one. Because the reality is we don't have time during the school day to do all that one-on-one service, and if it's an environmental situation where they need more help outside, then to get some of the supports to help them cope within school is really our goal, and then referring them to more needs outside of school.
Keith? So as we come to the end of our presentation for today, you know, one of the things that I'm cognizant of is that when I've ever had a chance to kind of meet with community members, one of the questions they ask is, how do we support? Like, what can we do? So we wanted to end with that, right? Like, what can community do? What can school committee do? What can anyone in our community think about as we describe this journey? We are aware that the journey and that MTSS structure can feel overwhelming. But one of the reasons why we also wanted to put it together was to show there's a lot of work happening to build that schoolhouse, right? And every year we'll go back to it and we'll tweak it, we'll do enhancements, we'll do a spring cleaning and make sure it's the right windows and the right furniture in that room. But that's part of the work that should happen every year in the school system, right? Is to make sure that we're building the right schoolhouse for the district. So, so what can you do, right? One of those, supporting that MTSS structure. What that means is anything you see listed on that schoolhouse, it takes at least 3 to 5 years to really get it right. When you're building something foundational, it takes time to go from launching to developing to then measuring progress and then continuing to tweak, right? So one is to provide the time, but also ask those questions. How is that MTSS work going? What's happening at your school or at the district around that work? The other piece is supporting the journey is to understand that when we think about some of the needs that our kids have, one of the biggest things we could do is make sure that we're building the capacity within our educators in our classrooms and with our student support staff, right? Those are the people who are with our kids every single day. So we're going to be working hard to align that work so that PD is impactful. The other piece is also, and we talked about that, is we're going to continue to be talking about alignment. We're going to continue to be talking about consistency. Because one of the pieces that I also heard was there was a lot of, and I saw it, there's a lot of great work. Everybody was doing as much as they could, but it was a different story at every school, right? It was a different journey. We started today's conversation with journey because we want that journey to have a pre-K to 12 plus feel to it. Yes, developmentally, it might feel and look a little different at every school, and that's okay. But how do we as a district have a journey that we can understand as far as what's happening at every level and why and how are they connected, right? So that's another question to kind of be asking, and knowing that every year we're going to be talking about that journey, and hopefully we're continuing to, along that journey, talk about those different stops we're making and shifts if necessary. And then, we're going to continue to be coming to data. So as a community members, don't be afraid to ask questions about that data. Come to our, family engagement nights. We're also going to try to record them as well and make them available online, because we know not everybody can make, whatever time those end up being at. We know not everybody can make them. But we do want to make them accessible, and we acknowledge that this work, although it's not new, it's deep to understand all the levels that schools are trying to work at. But that data is also our community data, right? When we have that Metro West Adolescent Health Survey night and we talk about and get into that data, those are my kids, those are your kids, those are our kids. As a parent, I want to know, what are my kids struggling with, right? What are some of those risk factors in our community, and what can I do as a parent or as a community member as well? And then also, we're also later this year going to be doing some climate and culture surveys. I also imagine us having a community night where we share, here's what's happening, or schools sharing, here's what my dad is, here's what my dad is, and here's what I'm doing about it, right? And we're going to make that transparent as well. One of the things that data for a lot of people can feel scary. We don't want data to be a scary thing. We want data to be here's what we saw, here's what we're doing about it, and here's what we're hoping we get. Right? It shouldn't be evaluative. What it should be is informative, and we want to make sure it does that for the community as well. So those are some of the ways that we believe kind of the community can support our journey, and that we'll continue to come back to share out with you guys as well. Last slide. And then this was a quote, and I shared it with some educators, and it was really impactful. And I think that it really kind of frames what we're talking about, right? When we talk about equity, when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about student support, it is about that last quote, right? Belonging is the outcome. All of this work is for one outcome, which is we want our kids to feel that they belong to our schools, to our classrooms, within our community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. This is really beautiful. Thank you.
And it was a lot. Are you tired?
It took longer than we thought. We'll go through this in a half hour.
Yeah.
Can I say
Please.
one quick thing? Thank you for everything, and I don't know when you guys sleep, but I think I feel really confident that we're going in the right direction, and this is really, really good to see. I think two of the things that there's so much in here, but two things that really jumped out at me that I think are extremely important and will have an impact on all this work is the fact that you guys talk about data so much and how data driven you are, and I just so appreciate that you're always looking to see what's working. And also the attitude that you guys both have expressed about always looking to do better. because it's not like there's never a finish line. We should always be evaluating and reevaluating and thinking about how things can get better forevermore. And I think that that's so important and a piece of the puzzle that some people kind of forget a lot. And I really appreciate that you guys both emphasize that.
And I think to your point, Lisa, part of the work is also when something is not working, we don't keep doing it too, right? Because I think people get into a habit of just, we've been doing this for so long, then it's hard to let go.
Right.
And that's similar to, we talked about STAR assessments when we had our family engagement discussion the other night. In all the assessments that we're doing at the schools, if we get to the point, it's not always about adding more on. It's like, can we take away too when it's not working, and reassessing that way as well.
Yeah. Don't work harder, work smarter.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
I echo all of that. I'm very grateful for it. I hope that the community night is well attended. Would we ever consider, as part of, because you have a little bit of a captive audience with an open house at Rams and an open house at the high school, even putting some of that data up, and then 10 points on how we're addressing it, and then an invitation to a later. Obviously, it's a great idea this year, but although the high school does have a second open house term, 3 and 4, but I just sometimes, just thinking of some of those families that are single working families, this is the last thing, that they can't make it. But they're a little bit of a captive audience at our open house. And they would just have to hear a little bit of this information to then pursue more.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion and something we could definitely talk about.
We're always open to ideas like that. And specifically, when we talk about those tiers, we know that anything we design can always have different opportunities for that, and invitations. It's almost like everything is an invitation to come take a journey with us with this data, or come learn about this, or come learn about that. And as you say that, I also think the other piece is to say, part of what we're trying to lay the journey is to understand every school is going through that journey too, right? Which is why I'm equally and we're equally so inspired, is that what you got a chance to hear is actually the journey our schools are engaging with themselves. So I love the idea of how could we make that data visual in a real way here for this school, or and for another school it might be something different, right? But that journey is one that we're hoping is replicable across our schools.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you refresh our memory around the grant that you received that you've used for all of these different initiatives?
Yes.
And how much it was for?
Yeah. So last year I received let me back up. So the Department of Education offered some SEL mental health grants that was for the purpose of starting to design and structure an MTSS approach around SEL mental health, which is kind of today's conversation, right? So we leveraged those funds. We received $52,000 last year, and we utilize those funds in multiple ways, from investigating the SEL tool to having a team meeting after school outside hours, researching and looking at different resources and doing presentations amongst each other, and then also contracting to do the psychological first aid that our staff desperately wanted, and also the culturally responsive student support practices PD that we're doing for our student support providers. So that's how it was utilized in that way.
Will the teachers get CEUs or the staff get CEUs?
Depends. So most of the people who participated in some of those were school like the SSP members.
Yeah.
Depends. For some of them it would be PDPs. For the psychological first aid, which will be happening in January, so those members, they will get CEUs for that. So it depends on kind of what the event is,
Right.
who's running it in the organization.
Right, okay. I'm particularly excited around the psychological first aid. I think is going to be really critical. And the fact that you moved from interface to this new Care Solace, which I think will service way better than what you were offered. I mean, which was great that they had that.
Yes,
Because I'll tell you, there are many people who are struggling to find care for months and months at a time. You know that. So this is excellent. So thank you so much for doing all that work. And I'm excited to see what happens over the next, to transition the next few years.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank
Right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
that's
You can leave. You can leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can walk out on my own today, so.
Yay. I know, right?
Oh, it's only one, that's good.
That's right, I can't believe that was just last year.
All right, so policy.
We have one policy for a second reading. Wasn't anything that we changed from the last incarnation of this, or the last, the draft, sorry. However, there was some discussion, Stacey, you'd asked a question about, why do we need to have this? And I think what we discussed as a policy subcommittee was that we have a policy that's associated with this, just with the IHAMB, which about parental consent for health education. It's like one of the few curriculum subjects where we have to have parental notification. So it makes sense to have a policy around why we're teaching this health education to go along with the parental consent. Because we're not asking for parental consent to teach your kid math or science or English, right? But we are asking for health education, particularly around certain topics, and we want parents and educators to understand that we are following the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks and following what we are supposed to be teaching our students. So that was our discussion more about that.
Bring it up big.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it is our second reading, so I do have to read it in its entirety, but Amanda's going to read it.
Okay. Let me turn this camera on myself.
Woohoo.
Health education. The school committee believes that the greatest opportunity for effective health education lies within the public schools because of their potential to reach children at the age when positive lifelong health habits are best engendered and because the schools are equipped to provide qualified personnel to conduct health education programs. The school committee is committed to a sound, comprehensive, research-based health education program as an integral part of each student's general education. The health and sex education programs shall align with the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, state curriculum frameworks. Holliston Public Schools follows additional guidance and best practices as provided by DESE and that reflect the values of the school district. The health and sex education programs will emphasize a contemporary approach to the presentation of health information, skills, and the knowledge necessary for students to understand and appreciate the functioning and proper care of the human body. Students also will be presented with information regarding complex social, physical, and mental health problems which they might encounter in society. In an effort to help students make intelligent choices on alternative behavior of serious personal consequence, health and sex education will examine the potential health hazards of social, physical, and mental problems existing in the larger school community environment. In order to promote a relevant dynamic approach to the instruction of health and sex education, the school committee will continue to stress the need for curricular, personnel, and financial commitments that are necessary to assure the high quality of the district's health education program.
Okay. Are there any questions? I do need to add I just moved the legal reference up because it was under policy cross-referencing, and I just moved it up, and I just was trying to confirm the other parental consent policy. I think it was IHAMA. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's what it
Okay.
was, yeah.
So that should be on there.
So I'd like
That's
to
all.
make a motion to waive the third reading on policy IHAM, health education.
Second.
We'll adopt it then.
I didn't know if that needs to be a second motion.
To make a third, you have to do a third reading. I mean.
No, we don't have
read-
to.
Did
I'm
you
just-
waive the third reading already?
Waive the third
Oh,
reading
sorry.
and adopt.
Gotcha.
And adopt.
And yes.
We don't need a second.
I also second that.
So do we vote?
I was just say all in favor. Great, thank you.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Central office updates?
So I put in your, well, I have it on, it's under new business as well, but I was going to talk about the equity audit here. I can wait till new business, or I can talk about it? Okay. So you should have gotten the two-page contract that we signed just recently with LNP Educational Services, and we're waiting to hear from them about, well, as you know, this has come up in our strategic plan as one of our initiatives to do an equity audit. So this is the group that we contracted with. We've met with them multiple times. So shortly, when I get the dates from them, I'll be sending out the information to families about whether we have focus groups and surveys and different things, and then we'll also be having interviews with various staff members throughout the district. So I just wanted to let you know that that work is going to be beginning soon, and that you have the 3 phases of work. involving preparation and self-evaluation in phase 1, data review and collection in phase 2, and then final reporting in phase 3. And they had indicated to us that they would join us to present that final report with you. Did they also mention coming earlier in the stages as well, or just at the end?
Just at the end.
Okay. So similar to what we did with our strategic planning process, but this, the people in this group were primarily educators. Some of them are currently educators at either the college level. Some are working in various different districts. One is an ELL coordinator in a district. So these are people that are entrenched in the work in other places, and then they subcontract with individuals to go out into the schools during the day. Because that was one of my concerns. We had 5 different vendors that we had vetted, and we were worried that some of them were spread a little bit too thin, and could they actually be in the schools during the school day versus after school, when it's very hard, as you know, to get stakeholders to come to these meetings after school as well. So we wanted them to be part of the school day, and this group had promised that to us, and that was one of the deciding factors as well. So we're really excited to begin this process and delving into some of the things that we believe might be inequities in the district, but now this outside source is going to help either confirm or deny that there's a concern, but having that lens from a viewpoint external, there's no emotions involved that way, and you know, I feel very confident that we've made the right choice, and this will be a good step moving forward with our equity work, 5-year plan. And then I did want to mention that we did have our October 20th, we had an in-person family engagement night with our central leadership team present, and we presented our journey that we're embarking on and discussed the 4 arches. And then October 25th, we offered that same presentation again by Zoom. We're trying to really capture our different audiences. So we did tape both events, but I was thinking I might share out the one that we taped via Zoom, because I felt like there was a little bit more, there were more people and a little bit more questions, I think, that night. But I can share out both. What do you think? It's just I don't want to inundate people. They're 2 one-hour meetings, so.
I think the people who attended in person would prefer that you share out the Zoom one.
I kind of thought maybe that was
Just
so
saying.
anyhow, I think that would be, that was my meaning, is that I was going to share the second night out and at least send that out to parents tomorrow, that they can watch that if they weren't able to attend. And we do hope to present, you know, some future family engagement events like that, similar to what we talked about tonight with the SEL and work in the Metro West. And trying to think of the best ways to engage people, knowing that it is challenging for people to get to events. So, you know, maybe we'll offer the next one in hybrid, you know, and we're going to try whatever we can to try to be successful getting the information out. Another thing I did want to mention tonight, and because today was a difficult day, you know, as you indicated, it was a lot going on in the district. So personally, I wanted to try to end on a little positive note, and I had in my schedule to go to the Unified basketball game tonight, and I have not been able to attend those, just, you know, have not been available at certain times. So I made the effort to go tonight, and that spread a lot of joy in my heart tonight. It reminded me of when they were talking about inclusion in our last presentation. That is the exemplification of inclusion, to see our typical peers and some of our other students working together collaboratively, and it just, I've always had a soft space in my heart for that, and the first time I've been able to attend one of those in the district. So I did tweet out some pictures from that event, but the kids were so enthusiastic and just, you know, wonderful to see. And then there was one other, I think there was one other thing, but you know what, I'll pause there and let my counterparts, and if I remember what else I was going to add, I will share that out with you as well.
Thank you.
Have anything else?
Keith?
I have nothing, thank you.
Tony?
No, I will be sharing out some professional development information with you guys after it happens, but just to remind you, November 4th is a full-day building-based PD coming up, and there's lots of great things happening, and I'll share those out at the next meeting.
Wonderful. There was one other thing that I was thinking of when Jariel and Jess were presenting. You know, they were talking about trying to work with stakeholders outside of our community, because to get a more broad lens and what successful practices are happening at the districts that we can reinvent without having to start from scratch, right? And one of the things that I wanted to share is that many of us are attending job alikes outside of the district for that reason. So the most recent are Jess and Jeriel. Jeriel was just, so Accept Collaborative, where I am the chair of the board, they have job alikes from multiple stakeholders, whether it be principals, special ed administrators, and they just started this year a job alike for directors of equity work, their various titles. So I indicated to Jeriel, are you interested in joining this job alike? And he said, sure. So I emailed them back and I said, my director of SEL and equity would love to join the job alike. And they had said to me, oh, does he want to run that? And I point that out because clearly we really, I convinced you how important this work was when we tried to get that into the budget at a very questionable time with COVID and everything else happening, and you supported us with that work, and he has done an amazing job with the rest of our team, so he is running that job alike at the Accept Collaborative as well. Joni goes to the meetings there as well, and Jess and myself attend meetings, but they've also engaged, I don't think we've talked to the school committee about Influence 100.
No, I was just going to ask you to share something about that.
Update on that. So Joni and Jeriel approached me, I don't know, a couple months ago about Influence 100 and help me with the framing of this. But Influence 100 is on their 4th cohort right now through DESE, and it's a free program, but you have to apply to be part of this. And the goal of this program is to develop leaders, because you know there's a shortage of strong leaders in the field. So they want to develop leaders in equity work that will go out into the world and maybe become, whether assistant superintendents, but the ultimate goal is to get some more superintendents in the field who will really build this equity model throughout the entire Commonwealth. So Joni and Jeriel applied to be
Fellows.
Thank you. And in order for them to become fellows, I had to also promise to be their mentor and to promote this work in the district and help bring them to, help them learn some of the parts of the role that they may not know yet. Yeah. So they did get accepted into that. We had an interview with DESE, and they got accepted as fellows, and the 3 of us attended our first meeting together with, how many other districts? It's about 25
I think
people?
So. There are 25 people.
25 fellows.
I'm not sure how many.
I think about 25
yes,
fellows.
25 fellows.
So we went to Bridgewater State University on Friday and attended a full-day training. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Commissioner attended that. He came to that. The Dean of Education at BSU, as well as the, I'm blanking out.
Sorry, you said the commissioner and the deputy?
No, and the, at Bridgewater State, too. It was the Dean of Education and the
president?
President of the school. And they spoke to us as well, and this work is going to be ongoing, so it is a big commitment, and it's a 2-year program, but I will be supporting them in my role, and they will be attending a lot more meetings than me, but I just think, again, it shows the dedication to this work that we have in the district and trying to build some more strong leadership, throughout the state, but in our own district as well.
It's a huge growth opportunity. It's going to definitely push Jeriel and I out of our comfort zones, and it'll be wonderful. So.
What towns were represented as fellows that you can remember off the top of your
We
head?
had Duxbury.
Can I get in there? Oh, you're right.
Let me think through some of them. Dedham, because
Right,
some of the
Dedham,
superintendents
right.
I'm trying to remember that I saw there.
Let's get it in here.
Natick?
Hold on a second.
Natick might have been there. So some of the I'm trying to think of superintendent cases, but some of the districts, the superintendent was unable to attend, so an assistant superintendent may have attended, so I may not know all of them, but it was a pretty wide audience, and many of our fellows are people of color, which again is so important to us to build leaders of color in the field, because that is certainly something that's been lacking.
They did not give us the packet electronically,
Okay.
so I don't have
We'll
that.
get that for you
That's
the
okay.
next time.
Yeah, we can.
But it would be good to, I don't know, with the change in Center President Spilka's staff, just because Pooja used to reach out to many of the school committee members like monthly. This is really good information for them to have, come budget time when they earmark some funds, or, Senator Spilka has been, really involved with social emotional learning and well-being pre-pandemic in particular. So it'd be good that,
And Darcy Fernandez is leading this work at the state level. I'm going to get her title on, but she was working directly with the Commissioner of Education with this whole model, and she's a former superintendent, so she's been entrenched in this work. I worked with her when she was an assistant superintendent in Randall, so I've known her for many years. So it is exciting.
It is very exciting.
We enjoyed our day.
Incredible group of people. Yeah.
that's great.
Great. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Thank you. Okay, personnel? Anything for personnel? No?
Not today.
All right, reports from subcommittees. Communication?
We have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, December 6th at 11 a.m. We haven't had a meeting since our last one, on October 4th, and we just worked on the newsletter. Yeah, we basically just worked on the newsletter. So our next one is December 6th.
Great. Policy, anything else?
We have to set a meeting date for November. I think it's probably going to be the 17th if we can't do it earlier than that, but I don't have a time yet.
Okay. Budget?
Budget, our next meeting is on November 7th. I believe it's 11 a.m.
11:30?
11:30 a.m., November 7th.
Sleep a half hour longer.
Do we need to move the time? Are we, okay.
Sorry, did you say
But that's after daylight saving, just so you know.
Could you
Seven.
repeat the date again?
It's November 7th.
November
7th.
7th?
7th.
I'm not hearing dates tonight. I don't know where I got the
Is that a
word from, but
Monday?
we're at the conference.
Yeah, so that's
why
the
I was-
Monday after daylight savings. just-
Yeah.
We do have that, but we do not have the other one.
Superintendent eval? Nothing right
Sent
now.
it to you, but Lisa did not send it to you.
Who's the chair of that?
I am. It's too early.
It's true.
But I will get you my goals. I had intended to get to them already, but I've been trying to listen to the goals of all of my administrative team, so I have a draft. I just haven't finalized it to get it out to you. So it's Lisa, refresh me again, it's Lisa,
And I think it's me.
Minnie,
And me.
and Catherine that I'll send the goals to when I have them drafted.
Great. And school start times, we need to set a meeting. We have not yet. All right. There appears to be no old business, new business. Financial report?
Contained in your packets is the October report on a quick summary. Okay, I clicked and I talked at the same time.
I was going to try to help.
That's okay. A quick summary, where I'm projecting a 80-something, I guess that won't be a summary if I have to guess, an $86,000 positive balance at this point in time. The high-level highlights, again, because we still have some teaching positions that are open, some paraprofessional positions that are open, so I'm estimating when they're going to be filled, how they're going to be filled, for what they're going to be filled for. So I have some additional favorability in those areas. About $50,000 in the teaching I projected, which is offset by an increase of about $25,000 in subs for long-term subs. Paraprofessional, I put about $11,000 more in favorability there. On the downside of things, we had an odd summer when it comes to elevators. I don't exactly know what's going on at the state level, and it's something that's gone around with my cohorts. There's either a new series of inspectors or some new standards with which they've never done before. And so we ended up having an expensive summer for elevators to the tune of about $40,000 of elevator repairs, of things we've never had to repair before, never had to look at before. And so and again, this is pervasive, so that was a rather unexpected negative side of things. So, but again, we're still in good shape here. We still haven't had a single bill come for a heating bill yet, so we'll see how that goes, and we'll keep chugging along.
Did you lock in those prices already?
We have not locked in the prices.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the market went down by about 40 cents, and I was going to lock in, except that the local piece of that market only gave us about 20 cents of favorability. So at this point in time, we did not lock in. We're counting on the president to save us.
Okay.
So,
Everybody vote.
There was a small, there was some kind of small fire or something at Placentino. Was there any kind of damage
sure.
as a result of that?
Yeah, that was an update.
We did have a an issue at Placentino. One of the ceiling-mounted additional heating units that were put in place in 1999, as the rooftop unit was not up and running yet for the gym. And so they put these little additional units that have been there, and, they're 35 feet in the air, so we kind of didn't care about them. One of them had a short that started a small fire that extinguished itself, and we had to move some children out of the gym out to outside. Luckily, it was a nice day. The fire chief, the school resource officer, Principal Slaney, and myself all attended the fire. We didn't bring any wieners or marshmallows or anything, but we kept the doors open for a couple hours, and the smell dissipated. Maintenance came in the next morning and took that unit, well, I'm going to say offline, it took itself offline. We piped around it and took it down, and it is now not part of our heating system, because it doesn't make much sense to have a 35-foot heating unit that doesn't have a fan that's blowing the heat down, so it's heating the ceiling effectively. But kind of no harm, no foul. There was no additional cost or anything as part of that. So,
But it did also lead to some phone issues and some electrical.
Electrical, not phone. That was, yeah, the phone issues we were kind of having before. So, but yes, no, there was, for some reason, the system had a little bit of a jolt that we had to address, both with maintenance and the technology department. That worked into the early evening, and then the next morning cleared it up, but we didn't have anything down the next morning at Placentino, so we were fine. So
no large heating unit replacement bills, nothing like that?
yeah, we didn't replace anything. We put it in the trash. So yes, no issue there. So thank you for bringing that up. And I don't mean that facetiously. I hadn't remembered it. It seems like a million years ago.
I know.
I'll be honest with you, it's not been. Okay, that's it for that.
Enrollment report?
Enrollment report contained in your packets is the October 1st, 2022, which is the 2022-2023 enrollment report that the state will use for doing Chapter 78 for next year. The number of students, you can see the breakdowns. I don't want to go in and talk about this for an hour, but the number of students, we're up a few students in gross, our in-district population, out-of-district population. A few students get drop-off services. Our school choice population's up a little bit at 103, and that's our resident population there. Also contained in there are the Placentino reports by homeroom, by grade, don't remember which ones are in which order. The Montessori breakdowns, Miller has by grade, then followed by homeroom. Adams by grade, and then by, it's something actually I threw together, just by subject area, so you can see the average class size by subject area. We're actually in better shape than I realized. And then the breakdown that the high school puts together every year based on their high classes and their low classes. So you've had opportunities to look at it. I don't know if you have any questions related to it. A member on your committee asked me also to put something together, which I will go into, so you don't have to ask me about that yet. I will put that up next.
Thank you.
But yeah, so if you have any questions? Nope.
Is there anything concerning to you about class size?
No, in fact, Susan and I talked about it the other day that, we're in pretty good shape, actually. We some of the things, and I'll talk about it in the next report, some of the things that we kind of thought would happen did happen. Some of the things we were a little concerned about didn't happen. So no, we're actually in pretty good shape, class size wise. If you looked, I don't know if you did or not, at the middle school one by subject, they're all like some in the high teens, but most in the low 20s. I mean, they're reasonable numbers. And so no, we're in pretty good shape. I'm not displeased or think we have problems. So, yes, ma'am.
I'm feeling bad for the Montessori 6 to 8 crowd. They've got like 23, 24 kiddos.
Montessori is a program that we purposely put at 24 based on the teaching styles. That is by plan. It's 24 basically for each class. Not basically, it's 24 for each class.
Do they have parents?
I'm sorry?
Do they have classroom paras?
In some instances when necessary. It's not, it's again, Montessori, the program, I'm not going to say encourages, but works well with a larger group of children because you want to be able to create cohorts, you want to be able to create subgroups, you want to be able to, it just works well in that fashion.
It's multi-age.
Yeah. And French always has 23. They start
Yes,
out
23, and that's based around attrition because, you'll see the French numbers by the time you get to, 5th grade are smaller.
Yes.
So, yes, ma'am.
I'm not asking for this right now. This is awesome that you put this together. I'm saying maybe for like next time or sometime, it might be interesting to see AP enrollment at the high school.
I can certainly pull that out.
Someday you can.
I
It's not an
don't know if Nicole reported on that exclusively. I know she probably put some in there. It's something about AP music theory, I
Yeah, only
see.
in, like,
But only
Actually,
Extra
speaking
low
of
class.
which, the AP, you need to register for the exam by Monday, in case anyone did not.
And I think
I
that
didn't
is
know
one of the
that.
things that you'll see with the equity audit too. They'll be looking at some of those things to see, are we over-enrolled, under-enrolled, are the course offerings rigorous, are they, that's an inequity type of thing that they'll be kind of researching as well. They'll be asking for that data.
Let's see if any of the things that we're doing, impede things that, would impede a child from going forward. Then the thing that one of your members, who I won't identify, asked for was a kind of a historical thing. I made hard copies just because it wasn't in the packet. So don't scold me for it not being done by Friday, but it wasn't asked for before Friday either, so. But this is basically historic, it's 10-year historical data. The oldest 9 years are DESI data. Our internal October 1st report never exactly matches DESI's October 1st report. So the numbers that, if you try to look and then you look later on when DESI finally posted, our October numbers I think are due December 3rd or 4th or something like that. But because we work through different pieces of it as part of the data piece, the data reporting piece. But when you see that they won't match these numbers, I will tell you that right now. That most will be close, but you'll talk 1, 2, 3 students off. So, but I think the couple of interesting points where if you look at the grades across the top for 22, 23, the asterisk is based around that it's not DESI official data. If you look through 22, 23, there's only one grade where our grade, the number of students in that grade are the highest within that 10-year period, and that's grade 1. So knowing that going forward, that's going to be our grade as we go at least through the elementary complex, where we may have a little shift of a teacher every year. Somebody's going to have to go and teach, like next year, 2nd grade. We may be moving a 1st grade teacher up to 2nd, or a 3rd grade down, depending on where the...
And we did add a 1st grade teacher this year for that reason, did we not?
No, last year we added the additional teacher.
Is that 'cause a lot
This
of
year we
kids
moved a teacher.
didn't go to kindergarten during COVID?
This is what it looks like, because you had a dip in
It's-
2021.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, the COVID year, that's one of those data points where if you asked me, I would leave it out of the line. It's just not, I don't say relevant, it's obviously relevant, but it's just, we had so much homeschooling that it did impact things, and our school choice number is down that year as well. The bottom is the cohort changes, so if you look like at grade 12, so that's up 5 students from last year. If you go diagonally, that's that cohort.
Yeah.
So just so you kind of you can get a feel, so and when I do this, I look for, I don't say oddities, but oddities, like, we lost 10 students in 2021 in 4th grade. Well, 2021 was the COVID year, so, it's that sort of thing. I just look at that, and you can obviously see 9th grade is our grade when students attrit out, which we knew already. We've had some years where it's been big numbers, 34. We've had some years where it's been small numbers. This past year it was only 9. The interesting thing is, for those who've been in and around education for a long time, 6th grade used to be one of our attrit years because of, whether it be going to Krista McAuliffe, Benjamin Franklin now, or Fay School, truthfully. That was our... It's the last few years, we've lost almost no 6th graders at all. That could be, well, this way, anybody we've lost, we've replaced with another 6th grader, whether it be through school choice or a new family moving into town. So I'm feeling better about the way we plan from 5th to 6th grade now than in the past, so. Yes, Dawn?
But we do continue to lose people between 8th and 9th. And one thing, watching my kids move through that, and I've often wondered, when our kids are in 8th, they go off and they look at Keefe Tech, and many parents go off and look at private schools. But we don't really do a great job I think, of selling what our high school has to offer to those 8th grade parents and to those 8th graders. I mean, eventually they get an orientation, but it's like in April or May or June, and you probably made your decision by then. Is there ever anything we can do? And some of the sports do this by coming down and trying to connect with kids to recruit them for volleyball or track. But our high school has so much to offer. And just some sort of presentation, even if it was at an open house for 8th grade, the beginning of the year, so that parents don't think, so we don't lose those 20, 30, 35 kids each year who then go off to private school. We might be able to keep them.
It's
we
more
did-
like
I mean, but if you look
17,
at it, we
because
didn't-
we know 17 of them go almost every, on the average, to Keefe Tech.
Well, we
I mean, like 17 of those.
We had
are-
229 last year, and we're at
That's a good
220
point.
this
It's-
year.
If we're giving all this information in Q&As about Keefe, why don't we give a lot of information in Q&As about what will it be like if you...
So I don't disagree, like, maybe we need to do some more marketing. However, I will say, just having worked in a comprehensive high school that had vocational programs, and my daughter also works in comprehensive high school, the reality is that there are some programs that certain students need
Right.
that we cannot offer. So, I mean, no matter, we can do all of that, yet there are still going to be some select groups and, programs at Norfolk, Aggie, and things like that.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't think it's too bad when you look at, last year we had 229 in grade 8, and now we're at 220 in grade 9. So yes, there are 9 students less, but
But I mean, when you think about, we had, oh gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot bigger number in Keefe than before. You know, it's actually, do you know what I'm saying? Was it 6 or 7 or whatever the number was this year? It was a much larger number than normal for Keefe this year. So when you look at that, you know, we are, I mean, I think we are doing better. Now granted, some may be economy-based. You know, I can't say you maybe can't afford Xaverian or St. John's or whatever. I understand that. But I don't disagree, Dawn. I think that, you know.
And it's not, I understand, and I acknowledge that Norfolk or Keefe may be the perfect fit for families.
So.
But I just would like parents to also understand the number of APs that we offer, the great schools our kids go to, the many
Yep.
activities we have before they're out looking at Xaverian or Ursuline or
Yeah,
something.
I would have noted down that. Oh, yes, just
having it earlier, I agree with you. Yeah.
Well, and also you see like the open house signs all
Yeah,
over
you do.
town right now for all the different places.
Right.
And you may not know the answer to this. How is it that Keefe Tech has a marketing budget?
Because we
They
give it to them.
market the,
We do.
they market the heck out of themselves because I've already
Well,
gotten 3 postcards of the same child.
Can I just share with you, they actually reach out to us, and we are required to give them our
Enrollment.
lists. Right. So they have, that's part of what
We
we
don't
have.
do that for Norfolk, though. We actually did a long time ago when I found out about it. I'll be the first to say that somebody sitting at this table stopped it. But that being said, no, we only do that for Keefe because they are part of us. That's our extension. They
We are in a
you
collaborative
know,
with them, so I mean, that is
you know,
part of that work.
They
We
get
don't-
part of our,
Yeah.
they get part of our Chapter 70. They are us.
Yeah.
So
But
that's.
they legitimately have
I understand.
marketing
I understand.
materials
I
that
understand.
we don't have.
I know, I've said
And
it
it's-
so many times.
Interesting to me what got sent to my home for,
I mean, you remember the day.
Do the students make them there? I don't know.
Apply now.
Actually, they
They
probably
probably
did
have
them,
Print Center.
probably.
I know.
Graphic arts,
The
right?
students
do.
probably do. That's what I'm saying.
oh, sure, but there's a
Right.
cost to them. I mean,
But you remember,
just saying it-
you remember when we had.
That's their strategy.
I'm saying, you may remember when we used to go to FinCom and they would talk about, well, Keith gives us this, I mean, you know, gives this big fancy book, and they had twice the staff I had. And they're a one school district, you know, so
Yeah.
it was, you know, it's those sorts of things that they have certain advantages or whatever. As a regional, they, you know, in theory, or not theory, they are a separate legal entity also.
And I
So,
think
you know,
their
they
per
can-
pupil cost is
Oh, my
higher.
goodness,
So
they're one of the highest in the
they're able to
state.
charge more. We're not charging, you know, like.
No, they are actually one of the highest in the state of all the votes. They are,
So
they
they
may,
probably
they're
do
either
have a
one or
little
two.
extra available for these things for.
1 or 2 in what?
And highest cost per
charge.
pupil.
Oh, wow.
But to Dawn's point, I think, you know, it would be good to know, you know, we're kind of guessing at some of these numbers, like, well, this many go here, and this many, it would be good to know why. Like, what is it that was so appealing about Keefe Tech? What is it that was appealing about, I don't know how you would
If it's a private
reach out to the
school or
people who
whatever.
went to private school, but it would be good to know the basis on which these decisions are made, and
what they knew
if
about
it's misinformation that they think, and what they know about us, and like, what if they think we don't offer X, Y, and Z, but we actually do, you know, like, I think that would be,
Type survey.
That would be good information to
good to
have.
know, right?
You could do an active one. We'd be able, I mean, we know who they are because
You could do,
the school's attending report is a January report. We could certainly go into that January report, find the students who are Holliston students who are in a different school and send them a note.
Yeah.
I mean.
They may or may not
you know,
respond,
I think we have that, I think we have that opportunity. I don't know who's going to do it.
Keith, do you also, at some point, have the school choice numbers? I know that's not part of this.
Well, school choice was on
the previous
the
one.
previous one.
No, I know, but was it from like the historical
Oh,
data?
no,
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
That's a bigger task.
I know, that's why I was just asking, at some point, it's not a,
Keith, I feel like we looked at that maybe last May when you were looking at opening it up, and you did a breakdown at one point of it.
Not by grade. I mean,
Not
gross
by
number,
grade.
gross
Yeah.
number I can do, but by grade is a task. I have to literally go through a different report for each year.
show that to us.
No, you did that.
No.
That was just for the-
She's looking for historical.
Like,
I'm sorry. Oh, okay, sorry.
It was for that current,
Misunderstood.
he gave the
Keep talking,
current
you'll be doing
enrollment.
the
of-
So we can look at this and say, wow, we had 2,819 kids way back in 13-14, and we have 2,800 now at 20. So we're historically, we're really have been the same for 10 years. Do we project stability like that for the next 5 to 10? There are some school districts I've heard, like Wellesley, that are seeing less families with young children or with school-age children, and it results in layoffs. But what is our stability like projected for?
There is a decrease statewide in child, and school-age children. I mean, it's
Recession,
not, it's a
2008.
fact. I mean, it's not even an idea, it's a fact. We haven't experienced that. Some of it's due to school choice. I'm not going to lie. We have an ability to allow students from other communities to come here. Some of it is our population has, as a town, has been stable. You know, we've had decent turnover from empty nesters. We've had, you know, a limited amount, but enough of new growth of new properties to you know, again, keep people moving in and of that nature. And truthfully, as I've mentioned in other meetings, we've had a large increase in multifamily, single-family homes. If I said that correctly.
Multifamily living in
Single-family homes.
Okay.
Multifamilies in single-family
Yes.
homes in this community, which we haven't had before, or at least not an extensive amount, which, again, we've unearthed through the bus pass process, where, you know, you end up with, wait, how am I getting 3 last names from this one household? And you do a little research, and oh my goodness, there's 2 families living together. Yeah, and truthfully, one of the families, we actually have 3 families living in the same house. It was 2 parents, one parent of the 3 families. And, you know, it's again, it's an affordability thing, I think, for those families. But they want to be able to get a quality education for their dollar, and somebody was living in Holliston, and, you know, they're doubling up. They're not homeless, it's by choice.
It is interesting, though, because we are hearing, and off the top of my head, I can't recall, but some of the surrounding districts have talked about seeing a steady decline.
Yes.
So we have not seen that.
At the MAPC Economic Development Workshop a couple weeks ago, they were estimating, and I forget where they got this data, for
too.
Holliston by 2040,
It would be 11,000.
that we were going to, our population was
was
going to go down to
ridiculous.
11,000.
Yeah, we saw it in the town hall.
That's right.
The other day when we were doing that. Yes.
And I thought, how was that happen?
You need to stop listening to them. It's the reason we threw NEASC out from enrollment projections, because they were bad about it, too.
So I thought that was very interesting, but I certainly could see a decline. You don't see as many families having
Where are they going to
3,
go?
4, 5.
But it's,
Well, you're also seeing a more diverse population coming in.
Right.
Because it's a little bit more affordable than some other, or, you know, or they have
like native.
family members or community members that they can connect with. I think there's a lot of different reasons. So it's so hard to
right.
guess at the future.
They were saying that the town population was going to go down?
Yes, down to 11,000.
Eleven.
It's not
Change
gonna
is
go
going to
down
make us like
25%.
nice to temperature in 30, 40 years. Like, we're going to be like,
You're right, actually.
we're going to
Waterfront.
And our high taxes are going to drive me insane.
be pretty temperature-wise.
My point was, it's
We
not
were probably
surprising that
traveling
we've
in bonds.
maintained sort of this flatness, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of dip.
I honestly don't
Maybe,
expect it.
I don't know.
I honestly don't expect it. I don't
Well,
agree with
you
your
know what,
projection.
it could be that for like 4,000 of us would be in the moon, on the moon.
Right, that's the plan.
Kindergarten.
Okay, so,
Maybe.
Okay, all right, so is that enough? Are we, Keith?
We're done with me.
Okay.
We are.
Substitute teaching rates.
We're not done with you
That
yet.
was me, sorry. I should look at the agenda once in a while.
Oh, boy.
Did you want to start, or do you want me to start? I really don't care.
Well, you know, we've had an ongoing concern getting substitutes, and that's a common question, and people thinking that we're not doing anything about it. The reality is, we can't find people to replace some open positions anywhere. I mean, this is a statewide and a nationwide problem. However, the substitute teaching rate here is far lower than some, and not as low, you know, we're on the low end. But we can't do anything drastic, but we need to do something to increase the substitute rate. So Keith had started collecting data on that.
Right, and I didn't share just because I was literally even getting things in today. It's just so fluid. So at this point in time, and again, just trying to look a town or two away, because if I start looking at rates out in
whatever's
East
touching us,
Longmeadow,
yeah.
that's not
It's not relevant, really, what's
Exactly.
touching us is what's-
So, and again, it's not sort of anything, because this is as they were coming in on the fly. You can see us at $85 a day for a base teacher rate, which truthfully around us is the lowest right now, except for Framingham,
I
which
was
is,
just going to say, except for Framingham.
because Framingham is no longer doing daily subs.
No, they just go to the CAF.
They've eliminated daily subs, they only do long-term sub. I spoke with their business administrator
From
today.
K through
They say if
12?
you're absent, don't expect the
Correct.
kids to do anything.
Wow.
We
Correct.
will not pass workouts.
Now, they're talking about, they're thinking about adding a budget, adding some money to the budget for that for next year as a proposal. I don't want to tell things about your school, but.
Please do. Everyone should know.
I spoke to him today about it, but yes, it's like a shocking, for me, example of how bad this market is right now for subs. Do I think that we have a little room to go? Sure. I know you guys don't like to vote on things the first time you see it, or I can't actually remember last time we changed sub rates. I don't remember if you all voted for it. So you may have allowed us, the superintendent, to do it as a personnel item as opposed to a school committee item. But that being said,
I don't remember if we voted, but I do remember the increase.
Yeah.
So it has been in the last
Me
9
too,
years.
yeah.
Keith, did you share this with us?
He did not.
No, he just has it on ours.
that's, our long-term sub rate is just
Talking to
250.
doing
I'm sorry, I
140.
didn't understand the second.
Well, I was doing it based on other places.
I don't understand the second column, INT.
That's intermediate term. Many districts, including ours, has like a middle term between a daily sub and then a long-term sub. Somebody who's going to be there the rest of the year. Many districts have put something in, and we've done that as well. So our intermediate term is from 11 to 90 days. If your assignment is from 11 to 90 days, you're expected to show up every day, et cetera, et cetera. That's $140 a day.
Keith, I'm sure I just need new glasses, but can you just make that a little bigger?
Yeah, I'm going to right now.
Sorry, I can't see that.
Sorry.
I have something to say.
Jesus.
Dawn, you go first.
Have you
What are you
made
doing?
projections of what it would cost us,
Nope.
approximations then, if we were to move from, say, 85 to at least the 95 that we see Medway at, or what it would cost us if we moved to the 100 that Norton's at? Do we have any kind of projection in terms of how many sub-hours we spent, or hours we pay for?
It's, we may be chasing our tail a little bit in this with regards to we can raise the rate and not have a single new person come in. The fact of the matter is that when they're working on average 6 hours a day, we're paying, basically right around minimum wage. And so when you can make as much working at Dunkin' Donuts without having, students doing things or having your threshold be, or actually make more at Dunkin' Donuts, they're above minimum wage. So that's, that's the other piece of this, that, who are we getting?
There's another piece, which is that we are paying our current teachers to sub during their prep periods, correct?
That is,
At a much higher
That's only at
rate.
the high school.
Okay. However, if we had more subs,
Oh, no, agreed.
would we be saving money because the teachers
That's fair.
make much more than these subs.
It is a very expensive model, I don't disagree, and I know some have said to me, well, they're getting a certified teacher. That being said, you may not have that training in that content area
That's right.
regardless, so
Yeah.
in some cases, it isn't more than a daily sub because of the fact that if they don't know that subject matter, they can't, like I can't necessarily teach
But they still get paid the same rate?
But
astrophysics.
There's
I cannot
other
teach that,
things
even
to
if
it.
you put me
You
in there.
can't teach that yet.
Yet. But you put me in algebra, I can probably swing a little algebra, you know, I mean.
And we had these days, and I think we're starting to move back to them when we're short on subs, is having 50 kids or 60
In the
kids sitting in the cafeteria. At least if you have a teacher within this school, and I don't care if it's history and they're with math, they have connections to these students.
I don't disagree with you.
That
That has not been the practice, and that has been something that Keith and I have suggested.
Yes.
And I do think we need to make that shift because, yes, we are paying premium sub rate for that entity. So you're right, at least if we have someone that can support and has an interaction with the students, I think that would be a better model right now than having someone in one classroom and then having holes elsewhere, you know?
So would that need any, like, bargaining stuff?
It just, a change in practice, so.
Well, other districts don't provide subs at all at the high school level. Like I know Newton doesn't at all, but at the lower levels they do. Because clearly, you know, you have
I think a lot of districts have gone that route for the
Yeah.
same reason. I mean, it's
I mean, I feel like that's where we should put our money into if we were going to, is to do it the lower grades. Because they can't be supervised on their own, or even throwing them to cafeteria would be ridiculous.
Are we at the same situation we were pre-pandemic with sub shortage?
Yes, if not worse.
Yeah.
If not worse. Again, people, the job market, as you hear all the time, people can't find anybody to work any job.
Right, no,
So-
even in the
I'm
expensive
just curious,
districts.
like, I haven't heard, because my student doesn't tell me, I haven't heard that my student is sitting in the cafeteria. And so that's all I'm saying, I'm not aware, like, I wasn't aware that's happening.
Well, no, I think
No, it's not, we haven't been doing that. That's
because of
right.
the model at the high school, we haven't had that happen as much. We asked someone to, during their prep period, to get paid $80
Right.
to fill in for that prep period.
Now, the one thing we have done more of, and this is a carryover from when during the pandemic, is each school does have the availability of hiring 2 permanent subs. So, you know, it's a sub who comes in every day. And that's at a rate of $125 a day. So we do have that available. I don't know off the top of my head which ones are filled. Are both
like
middle school ones filled, I
$22,500 a year,
think?
right?
Both high school ones, maybe?
About to calculate that.
It's just not, I mean, Keith, that's $22,500 a year, right? For a full-time sub.
For 180 days.
It's 125
It's just-
anyway.
Yeah, 125.
22.5 a year, she's
It's
right.
just not a lot, that's all I'm saying.
I understand, but
It's not benefits eligible or anything, is it?
yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you
Yes, it is.
agree that we have, do we have an average of how many subs we have in a day or a week? Would you agree it's more than 6?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there would be a benefit to looking into another long-term sub.
We did increase them in COVID as well, and I think,
Right.
did we just add one at
We
middle school?
added an additional one at middle school, so that's right, we're at 3 there
Three
now.
there, right there.
But yes, I mean, we had 0 before.
And I do
before
believe
the pandemic.
Placentino has not been able to fill that position. I think
Correct.
they had someone, and then they ended
Right.
up shifting that person to a
Right.
classroom, you know, so
It's-
they've had, for some reason, the middle school and high school, I think, have been a little bit more successful filling those. And they-
Yes.
Are the subs paid, like, district pay, or?
The permanent floating sub is $125 a day, but it's guaranteed work 5 days a week.
And they're
And
expected to show up.
across all schools?
We have offered it at all schools, but as I'm pretty confident that Placentino has not been able to fill it. Miller maybe has one, I'm not positive on
Yeah.
that. But, you know, similar
Again,
other
I
positions,
don't say they come and go, but they come and go.
They're filling holes, and then they think they fill it, and then it shifts elsewhere.
Right.
Is it possible to vote this on a trial basis? To vote an increase to $95 and try it for 2 months, and if it has 0 impact, we revisit it? Or is that?
Well, I think
something
if you do that, then you're going to lose the ones you already have. Like, if you
No,
go
I
up,
understand.
so I think.
And it might not be that enticing that it's a try. Okay, it's a stupid idea, but I guess the part is,
No idea, Stu.
when I look at this, I think, well, why wouldn't I drive to Ashland for that?
Right.
Well, that's the
$60
point.
for
I would.
the extra miles.
Right.
And that extra $60 hours times 5 days a week. We are significantly under.
I think just given the data, we should consider moving to 95 because.
agree.
I mean,
agree.
it's not a huge lift. It's certainly going to make a difference for us, but
Or it
we've
may
got to do
not.
something.
Yeah,
Or it may not. I
And-
I certainly think
but
we
if it
could do
doesn't-
it, but I don't know if it'll
And if
make
it
an
doesn't
impact.
change it, though, I mean, maybe we keep some of our current subs longer or something. I mean, we're behind, at this point, we're behind our peers.
Absolutely.
And that's not a place to be.
No.
Can we get to 100?
Yeah.
We can get to any number, but
Well,
it's,
okay, but really, like, I'd rather,
sorry, my computer went down.
Sorry,
I'd rather
yeah.
be above, like,
what are
I'd rather
goals?
be average or
Above
average.
somebody, that's,
I don't like being bottom of the barrel, and I don't like even being second to bottom of the barrel.
So here you're looking at
96.50.
So if we're at 100, if we're at 100, we're above
If we're at 100, above
Medway,
Medfield,
Ashland,
Medway,
Medfield.
and perhaps Milford.
Yeah, that makes
And
it more
Framingham.
competitive.
And Framingham.
Milford.
We're above 0.
If we make this move, is there a way to market this and advertise it so we are attracting people because it's higher? Are
We
gonna-
can certainly put out a posting, and I can ask the town to post as well, like I've done in the past, that we are seeking additional substitutes. We have
Okay.
just increased the rate to X. Yes, we can.
And we should be, are we then increasing our existing as well then?
oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
I feel like that would be unfair to not.
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Nope,
asking
nope,
the
that's
questions.
fair
I wanna make
question.
sure that people aren't
Increasing the
saying,
daily
oh, you're
salary.
bringing in new people, and you're going to pay them more than you're paying me. I just want,
It seems like it might be worth putting out like a whole communication to the community too. Like, I mean, I think if parents know, because just everyone knows someone, and
We did that a lot last year, if you remember. I would have.
I do,
we did,
I do.
And we put it on the sandwich boards. We did, I mean, we
Was it
did.
effective? Are you able
I mean,
to tell if you
Stacey,
got,
if we
if
go
you were able to garner
120,
interest by
is it
doing
going
that?
Little bit.
But
I
this
think we
is
had a
different.
little-
You're raising
Right.
money now.
But I think something that I've tried in the past that I haven't tried here yet is also invite them in for like a, come hear about. And we've had
That
current
is-
subs
that
speak. I
is
had
really
like a, yeah,
attractive.
but you don't have to commit. Just come in and hear about
It's
it.
like really
Why you
less,
should
like-
come to work here as a substitute and have a substitute speak about it. And I
Still
found that
not
when I
much,
did that in the
but
past,
still
it did kind of
substantial.
encourage that.
We've done that.
Is there?
We've done that before the
Has it
pandemic, yes.
helped?
It did help a
Yeah.
lot. We did do that.
a great idea, though.
Brad ran that, and it was
Yeah, something
successful.
I've done myself before, and it
Get
is.
on that, Keith.
Have we ever reached out to the senior center as people who may be interested in this?
How many hours are they in school?
As a direct reach out to them, no. I mean, I would think if we developed a script,
Send it to the community, though.
Or
but if we developed a script for a open house situation or a
Right, or
job fair
flyer,
situation,
something.
we could certainly repeat that script down there.
Okay,
Um,
or provided them with some information, because they might be interested in something like this, where twice a month, they come in and work with elementary school kids and earn $100 a day.
And maybe the ed school at Framingham State, like
Yes.
things like that.
We haven't had a
We
lot of
don't.
success there.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
That's not, they're kids.
We do better with interns from there, right?
We have a good relationship with interns, and we do well with the college students once they're done with
How
their...
about grad
Once their, studies are done for the semester.
At grad school, I would say we get more for like our counseling positions, because you
Yes.
have to have a master's in
Like the
order to be an
internship,
adjustment
right.
counselor. So you end up getting more interns that are having to get a master's before they can start. You know what I mean?
But master students are looking for money they might be willing to substitute.
And yeah, we can always, and we did do that last year. We posted on the college websites as well. We really didn't see a lot of traction from it, but sure.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I think usually with things like that, it needs to come, like posting on a board sometimes works, but usually it needs to come from somebody who works inside the university that can send an email.
So not
And I feel like
Hijack a class.
and certified and masters all get the same amount?
Sorry?
Like not certified, certified with badge, certified with masters, all get the same amount of 250?
Well, that's on long terms. That's the way we do long-term subs. Some districts do it, some districts do it, they increase the rate as the further along you are,
So long-term would mean like a semester or even a year.
Like a leave of
It's pretty
absence
rare,
or-
it's pretty rare that we have a an uncertified long-term
Yeah.
sub, because they really have to have that content skill and specific training, so they're almost, sometimes I've had a couple people that are in transition, and we help expedite that, so they might be a very short time having, because we don't really want to hire someone uncertified to fill a full year situation.
Right. And the trend has been, as you can see, it used to be everybody offered their lowest rate. You can see that at who's at Hopkinton, is at their B1 rate. Many districts have chosen the path that we did as well of doing it as a fixed rate. This way you control it as opposed to having the teacher's contract control it. That being said, we're actually very competitive in that field, so.
Yeah, that's like,
But I
we're
really
pretty
would
good.
rather look more attractive
No, I know.
on the daily.
No, I'm not saying we
But
shouldn't.
I'm not comfortable voting it if you haven't run numbers, just to give us
I just don't think we're going to have any way to assess it, because because there was so many empty holes, we don't know how many subs we should have had. Do you know what I mean? Because if we've been filling so many gaps, so he can run a report and say, this is how many subs we had last year. But if we were on average missing 5 per day, and we have no way to capture that, so it'll be hard to get the
But could we,
increase.
just as a starting point, look at the data that we had pre-pandemic? Because we spent 3 meetings on this topic alone, if I'm not mistaken.
We could, but I just historically, the absences are much higher now. So I don't know that you're going to.
But I feel like if we went from 85 to 100, that's $15. 15 times 180 days, let's say we had 10 subs a day, we're still under 30,000 and significantly under. So is that the type of numbers we're looking at?
What I looked at just right now is we have 200, and of course, I think I can remember the number from like 8 seconds ago.
258,800 on item 23.
Yeah, right, exactly. So $260,000, it's about a 17% increase. You're talking about $45,000, big round numbers.
Right.
So it's not while it sounds like a big number, it's really not in the grand scheme of things with regards to many of our sub situations end up being with leaves and things like that. It's how we develop a lot of our favorability on teacher payroll. And clearly this year, with the amount of vacant positions we have, right up to this date, we've had the favorability to cover it at this point in time. Not going to say it's not going to be a cold winter, not going to say, at this point in time, it would seem like our favorability would be able to cover that piece.
Okay.
So what happens if we go ahead, we approve this, and we have a bitter cold winter? I will move, but we have a bitter cold winter, and now we're seeing some gaps. What then? Can you just sort of walk through, then what?
I have to work through some of both my magic, and then, again, as we have more favorability and things like that, maybe this is the year that we don't buy copy paper on June 30th, we buy it on July 1st. We don't buy copying machines on June 30th, we buy it on July 1st. It's the reason we chose that strategy, in all seriousness, because of the fact of I can move one day and kick the can down the road for 365 more. So it's always been our strategy to do that once we put that piece of it into place in the budget.
And this is the fluidity of the budget that we try to explain when we meet with FinCom and everybody else, because we're changing on a daily basis. I mean, we just heard of some high-need students that moved into the district and are requiring additional staff. We don't budget for that. We have to figure it out, and we usually are able to.
And again, the budget is the best information we have as of May, whatever, the second Monday in May now. But that's what we go by, and we manage it as we go along. We've had a lot of success over the years, so,
Is there a number that you're more comfortable with?
I'm fine with 100. I anticipated it being 95, 100.
I mean, in a perfect world, I forget who said it, but it would increase our sub pool, and then maybe offset some of the money that we're spending.
Right, the other way. I mean, the difference there, if you look at it, we're paying $80, we're paying $80 a block at the high school.
That's just a block, that's not the day.
80 a block.
Right,
So,
that's just a block.
It's
It's 4 blocks in a
significant.
day.
So shall I make a motion to
Second.
increase the sub pay, the daily rate from $85 to $100?
Second.
For the
Second, I already did, before she even finished the motion.
Wait, I just need to be clear in my motion so that
You can have it, Minnie.
I need an effective date,
effective,
Immediately.
Monday.
Today, tomorrow.
November 1st,
Okay.
effective
Tuesday.
November, Tuesday.
Well, just because,
November
again,
1st.
I just did some payroll issues, like
Yeah, I know.
literally is a lot of paperwork
Oh,
that has
boy.
to happen
So wait a
because
minute,
every
you need a little
substitute
more
teacher.
time then? What's the next payday? I agree with you.
Until the next cycle,
What is
the
the
next
next
check
cycle?
cycle?
So then
Why don't-
effective the next-
Leave it vague,
Okay.
I'll do it as quickly as we can.
Effective the next pay period.
The next
Second.
new pay cycle.
Right, because we're going to have to do changes for
That
every
would be better.
substitute teacher.
And that also gets me time to hopefully get a flyer and advertisement.
And in terms of flyer, how do we feel about social media? Because I do think that a lot of your college kids that have graduated, they're a couple of years out, but will be back from early December until the end of January. They do still follow Holliston Happy. They do still follow some of the local social media. So a flyer of that type that encouraged, recent high school grads, and then here's the number to call so you can get your paperwork done. So when you come back, you've got this great little job for 5 weeks, right? But are we okay with advertising on social media? Have we done that before?
Oh, yeah, I don't see a reason. It will go on our Facebook account, we'll share it to the community. The
Yeah.
town can post it as well for us. I mean, they'll probably put it on their site for us. So
Thank you.
we'll get as many places as possible.
Okay, so we have to vote. Sorry, Kevin.
Do you want to say it again?
Okay, so I move to increase the daily teacher sub rate from $85 to $100, effective the new next payroll period.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Carries. All right. Newsletter.
No newsletter.
No newsletter. Equity audit we have already done. Any items of information? Anyone?
Next week, some of us are attending the MASC conference.
That's next week.
We didn't really, did we vote it? I'm your backup. If you,
It's May. Anything else?
Do we vote on that?
No, we already
I
did.
think I already did, actually.
Now, do you guys understand why I can never go to that? Because my kids would be in the cafeteria all day at school.
Yeah.
Sorry. Would be in the cafeteria.
Her students.
It's funny, but it's not even a joke.
Not
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not her.
Yeah, I got it. I thought you meant your own children. I was like, what? Okay.
Nope, my students.
Yes.
All right, so our
Because
next
we don't have
meeting is
service.
November 17th. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss deployment of security personnel or devices and to talk about negotiations with non-union personnel from which we will not return.
Moved by Amanda.
Second by Stacy.
Roll call. Ms. Dvorsky?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stebnick?
Yes.
Mr. Raffi?
Oh,
Sorry, I was
yes,
like, I almost said
that's
Miss
okay.
Stacy.
That's okay. Yes.
Ms. Raffi?
From Anna Green Gables.
Actually, I think I did was thinking Anna Green Gables. Miss Stacy, I could call you Miss Stacy. Sorry. Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta? Myself? Ms. Ford, yes. Excellent. Thank you.